What does the future hold for business? Ask 9 experts and you'll get 10 answers. Rates will rise or fall. Can someone please invent a crystal ball? Until then, over 41,000 businesses have future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR into one fluid platform. With one unified business management suite, there's one source of truth, giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. When you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time on what's next. When our business is ready to level up, I know exactly where we'll go. NetSuite. Whether your company is earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. Speaking of opportunity, download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/strange. The guide is free to you at netsuite.com/strange. netsuite.com/strange.
If you love chilling mysteries, unsolved cases, and a touch of mom-style humor, Moms and Mysteries is the podcast you've been searching for. Hey guys, I'm Mandy.
And I'm Melissa. Join us every Tuesday for Moms and Mysteries, your gateway to gripping, well-researched true crime stories. Each week, we deep dive into a variety of mind-boggling cases as we shed light on everything from heists to whodunits. We're your go-to podcast for mysteries with a motherly touch. Subscribe now to Moms and Mysteries wherever you get your podcasts.
Strangers. We're taking some time to share expanded selections from our Substack on both our main and premium feeds. If you like what you hear, be sure to sign up for our newsletter via the link in our show notes. I'm Laurah Norton, and this is One Strange Thing, the show where we search the nation's news archives for stories that can't quite be explained. We are used to seeing odd headlines. It's kind of part of our job here at One Strange Thing headquarters. You would not believe some of the gems that we uncover as we dig through the archives like industrious little research squirrels, searching out the next acorn to delight and entertain you. That said, coming across Ariana Grande convinced demons chased her out of creepy cemetery, that was a weird one, even for us. We had so many questions. First and foremost, Ariana, what are you doing here? Second, where is this cemetery full of demons, and why haven't we heard of it? Would demons be more friendly to podcasters who never released a hit single? Would our love of the unexplainable mean that we'd be more welcome, or are they equal opportunity marauders? Or as people who've never starred in a single movie adapted from a musical, adapted from a book, would we fare even worse? Honestly, it was a tantalizing train of thought that we spent far too much time on. But upon a little digging, it turns out that we actually had come across this story before. And truly, over a decade ago now, Ariana Grande did end up in Stull Cemetery in Stull, Kansas. It seems that back in November of 2013, Ariana was in Kansas City, Missouri for a concert. And according to Complex magazine, she decided to do a little dark tourism. What's more, she was willing to take a drive. As she told the reporter, quote, "We wanted to go to Stull Cemetery, which is known as one of the 7 gates to hell on earth. The Pope won't fly over it. I felt this sick, overwhelming feeling of negativity over the whole car, and we smelled sulfur, which is a sign of a demon. And there was a fly in the car randomly, which is another sign of a demon. I rolled down the window before we left and said, 'We apologize. We didn't mean to disrupt your peace.' Then I took a picture, and there were 3 super distinct faces in the picture. They're faces of textbook demons." Now, strangers, that was frightening enough. But there was a little more to the story. According to Win Entertainment Wire, Ariana told news outlets that, quote, "The next day I tried to send the picture to my manager, and it said, 'This file can't be sent. It's 666 megabytes.'" we're sure that we don't have to tell you the significance of that particular number. It's a fascinatingly odd tale, isn't it? What on earth went on in that cemetery? Why is Ariana Grande so up-to-date on the Pope's travel aversions? What is a textbook demon? Well, we have an answer to at least one of those questions. Sort of. The story of the Pope, that's been floating around for years. It's supposedly about John Paul II, who, as you may be aware, is not the current leader of the Catholic Church. However, he was Pope for nearly 27 years, up until his death in April of 2005. So blogs and web posts, they often reference this story about Pope John Paul II refusing to fly over Stull Cemetery. They claim its origin is an article that ran in Time magazine. When it might have run, well, that's a little fuzzy. According to American Hauntings, the internet claims that this piece ran sometime between 1993 and 1995, but no one's actually ever found proof of it. It seems that Ariana believed it, though, and a lot of other people do too, so that's only added to the mystique of Stull Cemetery. And it's not just about ghosts or hauntings, or even a stray demon or two that are said to be the problem. According to more recent lore, Stull Cemetery is a literal, honest-to-goodness gate to hell. Cue the music. Stull, Kansas is not the only place on Earth unlucky enough to be labeled a hellmouth. There are spots across the globe where legend, folklore, and superstition have combined to create long-standing belief in a thinning of the veil. In the United States, Pelham Township in Pennsylvania, and, for some reason, a storm drain in New Jersey, have also earned the unlucky title. But the cemetery in Stull might be one of our country's most famous examples. Figuring out why, though, is a bit complex. According to American Hauntings blog, the village itself is now home to around 20 people, so it's practically uninhabited, and it was never large to begin with. The Legends of Kansas blog tells us that 6 families of German ancestry arrived in the area in the mid-19th century, and per the Lawrence Journal World, originally called the town Deer Creek. It was around 1900 when, quote, residents made an application for a post office, and the government chose Stull in honor of Postmaster Sylvester Stull. That post office only lasted a few years. The town just wasn't big enough. But the name stuck. Those settlers also built a church and eventually laid out the ground for a graveyard next door, a necessary task in any village. Now, we know that the terms graveyard and cemetery are not technically interchangeable. If we're being sticklers, a graveyard is attached to a church and a cemetery is not. But common usage prevails, and Stull Cemetery does have a certain ring to it, doesn't it? So, we will give the people what they want. Strangers, it's a new year. Are you ready to optimize your nutrition? I sure am. That's why I love Factor. Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great, no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. And this is a lifesaver for me, especially at lunch. If I can't heat something up in a few minutes, I'm liable to skip the meal altogether or grab a handful of something. With Factor, I can have a wholesome, balanced, delicious meal that keeps me going until dinner without any mess or fuss. And I can choose from my favorites like smoky Gouda chicken or spinach and mushroom thighs. Totally delicious and so easy. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or my favorite, Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that cannot be beat. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/OST50off and use code OST50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code OST50off at factormeals.com/OST50off to get 50% off, plus free shipping on your first box.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today.
Now, all the history of Stull's founding is helpful in terms of place and time, and is a common enough origin story for a tiny town on the frontier. It also tells us absolutely nothing about why Ariana Grande decided she'd been visited by demons. What's so spooky about a little village that never really prospered? Look up most haunted places in Kansas or 50 places to visit this Halloween, and there Stull is, despite its utter lack of restaurants or hotels. And yet, the gate to hell has become synonymous with the town. So much so, wrote the Kansas City Reflector, that the TV show Supernatural wrote Tiny Stull into its storyline. At least one horror movie was set there, and tourists arrive with startling regularity. How did the tiny graveyard of what American Hauntings calls an extinct town get that reputation in the first place? Well, the Skeptical Inquirer says that some claim that the legend itself is old. The assertion is that when those German settlers came through, they chose the worst possible location for their church and graveyard, a pre-existing spot that was, quote, one of 7 gates in total. Which, what are the chances, right? Even worse, it's a popular one. Per the supposed legend, the devil apparently visits this gate at least twice a year. Don't ask for historical documentation of just how old this legend might be, because, as with most local rumors that have spread during the internet age, the Stull as a gate to hell theory seems to operate mostly based on vibes. It feels creepy, so it must be creepy. The farthest back that we can actually trace the story is to the latter part of the 20th century, when faculty and students at the University of Kansas became interested in the site and told tales of its connection to the occult. Our sources conflict as to whether it was first introduced by a professor who shared the tale with his classes, or if the tale originated with a fraternity, or if it didn't exist at all until it hit the pages of the student newspaper in 1974. We do at least have print proof of the latter. According to the Kansas Reflector, student journalists ran an absolute banger of a story in November of that year. Titled, Legend of Devil Haunts Tiny Town, it gave some incredibly strange and detailed accounts of what went on in Stull's cemetery, which was, we imagine, pretty surprising to the scant residents of that place. That article actually pinned down the devil's itinerary, too. He was said to visit on the spring equinox and on Halloween. The Hellgate activity was focused on the church building, which was long out of use by then, and, of course, on the graveyard itself. According to the book It Happened in Kansas, stories around the University of Kansas spread like wildfire. After reading the story in the local student paper, students claimed that, quote, a large tree in the cemetery was used in ceremonies by devil-worshipping witches. The ghost of a demon baby ran about the cemetery, appearing as a werewolf-like creature. A good Christian boy from a nearby town embraced satanic rituals after visiting the place. And don't you think for a moment that we're going to gloss over mention of a demon baby. The author explains that this baby was rumored to be a child of one of the alleged witches, and, quote, a grave marker in the cemetery bearing the name Wittich, awfully close to witch, may have contributed to the lore. That's not so different from the story of the Richmond vampire, which we discussed in our episode on the Hollywood Cemetery. It seems to have sprung up from a name carved on a gravestone, too, we have to commend college students of yesteryear for their creativity, at the very least. So, devil-worshipping, sacrifice, witches, and appearances by Lucifer himself. A story that good, it will spread, and soon the whole state had heard of the gateway to hell in Stull. It wasn't long until the cemetery was booming, with living people, that is. Per the book, it happened in Kansas. More than 100 people gathered for the 1978 spring equinox in hopes of spotting the devil. After all, that was one of his purported visitation times. And by Halloween of 1988, crowds in excess of 500 were appearing. Even those who'd more recently moved to town were expecting to see the horrors unfold. A woman named Sarah told Fox 4 News that she'd moved to Stull, which is honestly not something we were aware that people were still doing, and that she had waited all year to witness some demonic activity. After all, she said, she'd lived inside of the cemetery. She explained, "I was eagerly awaiting Halloween to see what would happen because it's supposed to open up on Halloween. But it didn't. Nothing happened." In the town of Stull, Sarah's disappointment and surprise at the absolute normalcy of the town seemed to be the rule rather than the exception. Despite stories like Ariana's, and with all respect to Miss Grande, a fly and a spooky picture are not exactly bombshell-proof. No one has produced any major evidence of true paranormal events taking place in the church or the graveyard. Strangers, we are not shocked by this. But when did the lack of evidence ever slow down a good story? And while we are usually pretty circumspect about belief or disbelief, we are confident in declaring that there is no gateway to hell, one of 7 or otherwise, in Stull, Kansas. It's giving satanic panic and college prank all rolled into one, right? Weird, totally without merit, but harmless. Pretty much like every other urban, or should we say rural, legend out there. Or it would be. Except for one strange thing. The true menace in Stull, Kansas, isn't a band of witches that shows up to summon dark forces, or even Satan himself appearing from a gate to hell. It's not demons or cursed airspace or a cemetery full of graves. It's the people who are attracted by the possibility of such things and are willing to desecrate that little graveyard and the church that once stood there. According to the Lawrence Journal-World, the church was fully demolished back in 2002. It had caved in after a windstorm and was finally, quote, razed. As we told you, it was long unused, but the danger was real because of the trespassers who were set on macabre mischief. According to the Wichita Eagle, it had been a fad for years to sneak onto the property and throw beer bottles at the church's wall. If the bottle broke, then the person who threw it was destined for hell. If it didn't break, they were safe. Obviously, all this trespassing called for extra security, and Stull had no police force. Per the World, it had cost the county's taxpayers, quote, a lot of money for the church to remain standing. So, the loss of the building wasn't necessarily mourned. But the city was concerned about maintaining and protecting the graveyard. After all, it was still used by locals to bury their loved ones. Per the Lawrence Journal-World, quote, Douglas County Sheriff's deputies keep a close eye on the cemetery and have written tickets and even arrested people who violate the no trespassing warning. But those people, they do a lot more than simply wander the grounds. When the Skeptical Inquirer visited Stull, they spoke with locals about the effect the legend has had on the graveyard and the resting place of their family members. Danny Rake, who was keeping an eye on the land, told the reporter that at the time of his visit, 2010, quote, the cemetery had 13 broken headstones, and 11 more were actually missing altogether, stolen by thrill-seeking paranormal enthusiasts. In a 2000 interview, Stull resident Norma Lynch wished fervently that those paranormal enthusiasts would become enthusiastic about something else. As she explained to the Wichita Eagle, my parents' tombstone was pushed over. It used to be this only happened around Halloween, but now people come whenever they have the urge. It's just a shame because there are so many broken or stolen stones. It just doesn't look like the same cemetery. And that is the thing that we need to keep in mind, strangers. For all of our love of the mysterious and the unusual, we can't get too caught up in it all. We cannot become the thing that goes bump in the night. What's a fun night of drinking and writing a farcical article for a bunch of college newspaper kids? And based on their hazy memories and later interviews, that's what it seems to have been. Can mean decades of unintended consequences for a town that never wanted to be on the map at all, much less as a gateway to hell. Often, we have seen a cryptid or a haunted legend create a booming tourism industry and be welcomed by the folks in that area. But what if, instead, we're opening another kind of gate, one that erases the past and invites in destruction? When we dive into the strange and unusual, we cannot forget the people who live in the places where the legends thrive. We hope you'll join us next time for another real-life story from the fine print of America's local papers. From the lives of regular people, just like you and me, except for one strange thing. Strangers, we've launched a Substack to tell more stories of the weird that aren't quite long enough for the podcast. Some posts are paid, some are free, but you need to be a subscriber to get them delivered right to your inbox. So, follow the link in our show notes to sign up for a lot more content. It's like a newsletter, but a lot more fun. One Strange Thing is an independent podcast. To support the show and to hear more of the entirely true and enticingly peculiar, you now have 3 options to enjoy 2 extra bonus episodes a month. On Apple Premium and Supercast, you can get bonus episodes delivered to your app of choice for just $2.99. And for $2 more a month on Patreon, you'll get a lot more fun extras. There you'll find ad-free early releases of our regular episodes, 2 full-length bonus episodes, monthly giveaways, and blog posts, all for $5 a month. We hope you'll check out one of these options and support the show. There's a link in our show notes. And if you enjoy One Strange Thing, please take a moment to leave us a great rating or review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps.